And that brings up another topic, which is you've been on both sides of the preservation debate. You've had a lengthy career that has involved work at the Green Dragon Colony, the Ellen Browning Scripps Cottage, which is today the Museum of Contemporary Art. You worked in Balboa Park, of all places. How do you feel about the preservation of architecture in general and specifically your own buildings?
Well, I'd like to answer that, partially. In the first place, I am absolutely in favor of the preservation of the references of our culture. Our buildings and our parks and our physical environmental development is an integral part of our culture. And so to put value on the best of the past, it seems to me is obvious, a necessity. And I support it. But, there's a but underlined. We all recognize that we live in a democracy with a constitution. And if we've read the Constitution and got the essence of it all, we recognize that private property rights are guaranteed by the Constitution. And the problem with the people who are preservationists and the people who build, the problem between those two entities is that there is no way that the preservationist can say to the person who has a valuable historical property, here's the way we're going to compensate you for your losses when we make it historic and make it so you can't use it, which in most cases is true. There are examples of things that are made historic which have legitimate use opportunities. But there's no system for doing this in this country. There's no established routine for saving a building. You see a building out here and you want to save it. You say to the owner, we're not going to let you do anything with it. You can't alter it. You can't tear it down. You can't do anything except in the interior. You can do something in the interior. And all of a sudden, the guy discovers that, well, my God, what do I do with it? You know, you can't put a house in it or something, or you can't make a business of it, and I need the income off of that property. So I throw it out to you. I challenge the people who want to be responsible for saving our culture, who should be encouraged. Those people have got to find a way to pay for it, because it ultimately comes down to the fact. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but Keith mentioned it. The Green Dragon Colony, some of you have heard about, maybe a lot of you, belonged to my brother and me, and it was made historic with phony evidence, cooked up by an individual. It took 7 years to get that straightened out and a lot of money, and we finally got it straight, and we're going to begin building it again. But I've experienced this problem, and we have a wonderful lawyer in San Diego by the name of Marie Leah, who takes cases either way when she feels a property owner is justified in fighting for his property, or someone who wants to make a piece of property historic. And she's very good at analyzing these things and helping people to realize the purpose of what they want to do. But I think historic preservation is here. It needs to be encouraged, and it needs to be figured out how to make it work. And we haven't done that. The Europeans know how to do it, most of them, many of them. In Britain, all of the famous old things the government owns. Government buys it and puts it in order, and you know, there's a way to do this, but we don't have it in this country yet.
What would you say to someone that tried to summarize your career as that guy that built or designed the Coronado Bridge? What do you say to that person?
You know, it just kills me. I've built a number of buildings around town that people know. And when I'm introduced at a party, this is the architect who designed the Coronado Bridge. Nobody knows a thing about everything that I've done, that I'm rather proud of some of it. But it's not rare now for architects to design bridges, and you will see some absolutely stunning bridges that are the designs of which are being evolved now, that are absolutely breathtaking. But architects, when I was assigned that project, hadn't designed bridges. But the experience of doing it was one of the great periods of my life. It was just marvelous. I went to San Francisco to meet with the Division of Atoll Crossings engineers for almost a year, every 2 weeks. Spent the day. We worked hard on resolving all of the details and the systems for the bridge. They took me to wonderful places for lunch. I really liked the lunches a lot, too. But am I getting there?
You're on the path. You're on your way.
Where do I go from here?
Well, I think principally explain that you aren't the architect or designer of that bridge, but you've often been mistakenly identified as that person.
Well, those of you who read in the paper a few weeks ago about the 40th anniversary of the building of the bridge, having read that article, you would have assumed that Bob Mosher went into his studio and drew up the plans for a bridge and handed them to the contractor, and they built it. Well, the truth of the matter is there are a lot of people involved in a big project like this. Engineers, structural engineers, electrical, mechanical engineers, construction supervisors. There are a whole raft of people who, the major important ones, though, being the structural engineers, who contribute to the design of a structure like the bridge. And I only was the architect designer who influenced the way it looked. I didn't figure out how to make the pylons, how much steel to put in the pylons, or that wasn't my role. My role was that of determining the looks of the bridge, and in one way or another, through the rather complicated and sometimes traumatic experience we had, I am responsible for what it looks like. I can say that seriously, because of many conditions, which I don't know whether Keith wants me to go into it or not, but I feel very bad, though, when, like this article in the Union Tribune, in the newspaper, which credited me for the whole thing. And it was those people, when I speak at these openings and things, I always make it clear who worked on it, who was responsible for what. But they didn't hear it in that type case, and it was very embarrassing to me because it did not represent. In the first place, they ignored many of the principal people in the design of the bridge, and that was unfair. So I wrote a letter to the editor, which clarified it, and sent that copy of that letter to the Caltrans director now, so that he'd know that I wasn't silly enough to take credit for all of it.